On the 3rd year after my boyfriend's sacrifice, I saw his name at a wedding. He was the groom, and the bride was the intern I had personally mentored. She held his arm, smiling sweetly. Senior, thanks to me for dragging him out of the border garbage dump back then. I heard there was some woman entangled with him before, almost causing him to fail his mission. So, what do you think, Senior? Don't you think it's fate that brought us together? Chapter 1. Abigail was still chattering endlessly, her voice drilling into my ears. Yet I couldn't make out a single word. 3 years. 3 long years and countless days and nights. I risked my life searching for the man I loved, never finding his body. And now, he had become the groom of the very intern I personally trained. Senior? Abigail leaned closer, her tone laced with concern. Why do you look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? I jerked her hand away, my body trembling. My nails dug deep into my palm just to suppress the violent rage surging in my chest. For 3 years, I had given everything. Through the hail of bullets on the borderline, crawling through jungles swarming with snakes and insects, climbing over mass graves filled with nameless corpses. Even when his family gave up, I never stopped. All for one belief: alive. I must see him, dead. I must see his body. Lucas, the ace of the criminal investigation unit, my partner, my lover. 3 years ago, during a top-secret cross-border operation, the target blew up a chemical plant. The case report was cold and ruthless. Lucas. No remains found. I refused to believe it. And now, he was alive. But he stood at the end of a red carpet, waiting to take the hand of my precious junior, dressed in a sharp suit. Still tall and commanding, unchanged from 3 years ago, except for his eyes. Those eyes that once held only me, now swept past me with indifference. Senior, stop thinking about him. Abigail sighed softly. It's all in the past. Look at me, didn't I find Lucas? You should let go too. Find someone good. Before she could finish, the door to the dressing room opened. Lucas walked in. The air froze instantly. Behind him followed several groomsmen, the same brothers from our unit. Their eyes flickered, their expressions twisted with guilt, silently screaming, "Shit, she's doomed now." If a moment ago I still held on to the foolish hope that maybe he had lost his memory, then the looks on their faces were the cruelest slap in the face. He hadn't lost his memory. He just didn't want me anymore. Hubby, Abigail's sweet voice rang out, her eyes shining like stars. Tonight, don't let Diego and the others leave, okay? Let's all have a good time. Make it lively. Lucas merely hummed in agreement, his gaze glued to Abigail's face, never sparing me a single glance, as if we had never known each other. My heart clenched as though a giant hand had crushed it, then tore it wide open. I stumbled into the restroom, leaning against the wall as I slid down to the floor, its icy surface seeping into my back, but unable to numb the searing pain inside. Lucas, my voice broke into sobs, raw anguish tearing out of me. How the fuck could you? Chapter 2. Outside, I vaguely heard Diego's voice, lowered to almost a whisper. Bro, are you really sure about this? Nicole, Lucas's tone was flat, detached. Just someone tangled up, getting in the way. Once a mission ends, you cut ties clean. Do I really need to teach you that? The wedding began. Abigail, sensing my poor mood, found someone else to replace me at the last minute. I shrank into the darkest corner of the banquet hall, watching Lucas drop to one knee, watching him slip a ring onto Abigail's finger. A violent rage shot straight to my head. I wanted to storm forward and tear apart this wedding. I wanted to grab Abigail and demand, by what right did you steal my boyfriend? I wanted to seize Lucas by the collar and scream, where the hell were you these past 3 years? I wanted to ask all of them, why did you all treat me like a fool, conspiring together? But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen in the shadows. And then, when they exchanged rings, and the officiant announced, the groom may kiss the bride, I was the first one to clap. I clapped loud, so loud that people around me turned to look. I didn't care. I only met Lucas's gaze as he finally looked at me. I forced a smile, but tears spilled uncontrollably, burning hot as they streamed down. His pupils contracted slightly. Then he calmly looked away. That fleeting ripple in his eyes was swallowed by an even colder indifference, sealed beneath layers of ice. My nails dug deeper into my palms, I thought. I must be going insane. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to him. Lucas, I don't wish you a happy marriage. I wish you a lifetime of longing, of never getting what you want, of forever being torn apart from the one you love. The faint tone confirming the message had been sent made me feel like an idiot. The woman he loved was right there beside him. What weight did my curse carry? Before the newlyweds even came to toast, I left. If I stayed another second, I was afraid I might actually pull the trigger. A year ago, the last faint trace of him had vanished in a border town. I went back to that safe house once belonging to the two of us, its air still heavy with stale gunpowder, and in front of the cracked bathroom mirror, I slit my wrist. It was the old neighborhood cop downstairs, the one always nosy, who noticed something wrong and kicked down the door. When I woke up in the hospital, the old squad leader clutched my hand, eyes red. Nicole, you have to live for him, live on, and put away every last bastard we didn't catch. Live for him? But without Lucas, the world was nothing but darkness, too bitter. He and I, childhood sweethearts, partners in the squad, comrades through life and death, lovers. We were only one step away. The report had been filed, and as soon as the transfer order came, we would have gotten our certificate. Until that cross-border operation, until that earth-shattering explosion, like a madwoman, I scoured every inch along the border. I asked the drug dealers, I asked the informants, I asked every breathing creature near the blast site, and every single one of them shook their head. Chapter 3. I drifted into a hazy sleep, and when I opened my eyes again, it was the vibration of my phone that woke me. More than a dozen missed calls, all from Abigail, and one voice message from the old squad leader. His tone weary. Nicole, come back. The team needs you. Scrolling down, I saw one glaring message. Just one word, get lost. I stared at that word for a long time, then suddenly laughed. So all my so-called devotion, in his eyes, was nothing but a joke. My gaze dropped to my chest. Hanging there was a roughly carved wooden pendant, already cracked with age, but I had never once taken it off. 3 years ago, the night before our last mission, he climbed over my wall in the middle of the night, dew still clinging to him, and hung it around my neck. From a temple, blessed, he had said with a sheepish smile, ears flushed red, it'll keep you safe. Don't take it off. Later, I found out that the temple was in the deep mountains on the other side of the border, abandoned long ago. For that ridiculous amulet that supposedly tied fates together. He had nearly been shot on sight as an illegal trespasser. My eyes burned. I yanked the charm off and tossed it straight out the window, watching it fall into the trash bin below. Lucas, from now on, you walk your broad avenue, and I'll walk my narrow bridge. After crying until my chest felt torn apart, I finally woke up completely. I dialed the old squad leader. Chief, I'm rejoining. I'm applying to return to the front line. You've made up your mind? Yes, I'll wrap up my pending cases and leave. Tickets booked. 7 days. That day just happened to be the anniversary of our first meeting. Where it all began, there it will end. For those 7 days, I locked myself inside, seeing no one except to finish the paperwork at HQ. My phone stayed on airplane mode. On the 7th day at noon, the pounding on the door was deafening. Outside stood Abigail, and behind her, Lucas. Senior. Abigail rushed toward me for a hug, but I stepped aside. She didn't mind, just patted her chest in relief. You scared me to death. Your phone was off. The door wouldn't open. I thought you had, again. She trailed off, her eyes flicking meaningfully toward my wrist. I'm fine, I said flatly, my tone unreadable. We came to get you. Abigail chirped. It's your birthday today, remember? We've prepared a surprise party for tonight. Plus, we'll introduce you to some of the new handsome recruits in the force. Don't say no. Refusal invalid. Her voice was bright, cheerful, brimming with the kind of warmth that was impossible to refuse. Sunny, radiant, and full of life. No wonder Lucas had fallen for her. I looked past her at the man standing behind. His eyes were cold, glacial, staring at me as though I were a stranger. Without thinking, I stepped aside to let them in. This safe house had been applied for with 2 occupants in mind. After Lucas vanished, I stubbornly stayed, keeping the furniture and decorations just the way he liked them. Abigail wrinkled her nose dramatically, glancing around. Wow, senior, your taste is unique. Huh? Feels more like a war room than a home. Cold, lifeless, not a hint of warmth. Yeah, I answered softly. My ex liked it this way. Back when we lived together, everything was arranged according to his habits. Chapter 4. Abigail immediately pouted. You really have no backbone. Why do you always give in to him? At my place, Lucas listens to me. I told him to sleep on pink sheets. And he did. I pulled the corner of my lips, remembering that brief time we lived together 3 years ago. I had also bought pink bedding, spreading it excitedly over the bed. But Lucas had stubbornly chosen to sleep on the floor wrapped in a blanket rather than lie down on it. In the end, it was only after I angrily replaced them with dark gray sheets that he reluctantly climbed onto the bed. Is that so? I looked at Lucas, my tone flat, without a ripple. Did he sleep on the floor then? Abigail's voice shot up instantly. He wouldn't dare. His underwear is pink now, because I picked them out for him. Lucas's lips twitched almost imperceptibly. Abigail chuckled. Men, if they truly love you, will do anything for you. Any man who refuses to sleep with you just because of a sheet color? Trash. You should dump him. You've wasted years chasing him. What for? He's a loser. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then nodded slightly with a sigh. You're right. Maybe he really never loved me enough. The moment the words left my lips, Lucas's gaze cut through me like a blade. His eyes were merciless as they pinned me in place. He spoke coldly, his voice hard as steel. Since Officer Nicole understands so well, she should have some self-awareness. Step back. Stop disturbing other people's lives. And better yet, disappear forever. He paused, and his tone grew sharper, venom dripping from every word. Your so-called self-sacrifice only disgusts people. Self-sacrifice? So all the years I risked my life searching for him, in his eyes, were nothing but laughable self-indulgence. It felt as though my heart had been stabbed through. You know him so well. I met his icy stare, my voice trembling despite my efforts. Because you're the same kind of person, aren't you? You both like to vanish without a trace. You both like to let others suffer in despair. Then with one dismissive phrase, self-indulgence, you trample everything we gave up into the dirt. I just want the truth. Did these 3 years of mine mean nothing? Lucas's brows furrowed, his temper flaring. No one forced you to wait. Love and hate are choices you made. You chose to wait, so you alone bear the consequences. What? Just because you waited for 3 years, he's supposed to be grateful and marry you on his knees? His words were ruthless, final. I stood frozen, stunned, as the last scraps of hope inside me shattered completely. He was right, wasn't he? Love and hate are choices. No one forced me. No one begged me. So today's ending, I had to bear it alone. Biting my lip hard, the taste of blood spreading across my mouth. I stared through a blur of tears. Fine. I heard my hollow voice whisper. I should disappear. Abigail sensed something was wrong, quickly shoving Lucas toward the bedroom. Her warning hiss carried out into the room. Lucas, are you insane? You know how she is. And you still provoke her. Just shut up already. Lucas let out a derisive laugh, full of contempt. Pretender. That one word ground the last of my dignity into dust. I stood like a puppet, empty, after what felt like forever. The bedroom door opened. Lucas came out alone. He didn't look at me, heading straight for the door. Where's he going? I rasped. Abigail was fixing her lipstick in a compact mirror. She didn't even look up, her tone sweet and casual. Oh, since he officially came back just over a year ago, there's been a backlog of cases. He's off to handle those. My mind went blank with a loud buzzing sound. He came back a year ago? Why didn't I know? Of course. Abigail finally met my eyes through the mirror. He came back to discuss our wedding. My lips parted soundlessly, my gaze empty. He came back. He came back. And I, like an idiot, was still searching the borderlands for him in vain. Come on. Abigail snapped her mirror shut and pulled on my arm. He'll be done soon. Change your clothes. Let's go to the club. Your surprise is waiting. You go ahead. I pulled free. I'll pack up and follow right after. Don't take too long. She didn't suspect anything, cheerfully bouncing out the door. The moment her footsteps faded down the stairwell, I grabbed my phone and dialed a secure number. My voice was steady, devoid of emotion. Calling headquarters. Shadow mission completed. Requesting to return to unit. I agree to the hummingbird plan. Arrange the meet. A calm, steady male voice answered on the other end. Shadow confirmed. Nest secured. Hummingbird is already in position. Welcome home. Tears poured silently down my face. Good. Book the flight for tonight. I'm leaving today. I pulled out a dusty black backpack from the bottom of the wardrobe. Packed essentials, documents, and the pistol that belonged only to Shadow. With the bag slung over my shoulder, I headed straight to the airport. Before boarding, I blocked every contact related to Lucas, turned off my phone, tossed it in a trash bin. Outside the window, the lights of Jiangbei City shrank rapidly into the night. Lucas. This time, it's real. We'll never meet again. Chapter 5. Inside the club. As soon as Lucas pushed the door open, Diego and Old K immediately surrounded him. He ignored them and walked straight to the center of the private room. On both sides of the aisle, clusters of plastic imitation flowers held photo after photo of me. His footsteps faltered, and his brows furrowed. The order is wrong. His voice was low, carrying obvious displeasure. He strode forward, pointing at a photo of me in my training uniform. This one was taken right after her first cross-border mission. Put it at the very front. Displeased with the waiter's slowness, he did it himself, rearranging each photo in chronological order. Then he picked up the drinks menu, quickly scanned it, and his tone grew colder. Who ordered shrimp? Cancel it. She's allergic to seafood. The background music. He turned toward the control booth, his voice brooking no argument. Change it to Wind of Change. Diego and Old K exchanged glances, not daring to breathe too loudly. Damn. Lucas even remembers the exact date when these photos were taken? Diego muttered, throat dry. Tell me, do you even remember what your wife wore 3 years ago today? Old K shook his head, eyes complicated. I can't even remember what she said she wanted to eat yesterday. But Lucas, this. Shoo, shut up. Diego glanced nervously at Lucas, who was meticulously adjusting the gift boxes. He forced a laugh. He's just got a good memory. Of course he remembers everything about her even clearer. By 7 p.m., people started arriving. The lights were turned up a little, and the music switched to that nostalgic rock ballad. Lucas's eyes kept drifting toward the closed private room door. 7:30. No one at the entrance. 8 o'clock. Whispers began to spread. 9 o'clock. The atmosphere in the room turned tense and restless. What's going on with Nicole? She's still not here? Shit. Nicole blocked me, one of the guys shouted, holding up his phone. On the screen, the message he had just sent showed a glaring red exclamation mark. Me too. Mine won't go through either. Abigail put her phone down, her expression uneasy. Same here. Everyone's eyes turned to Lucas. He stood tall, his back straight, but under the changing lights his face looked ghostly pale. He pulled out his phone, his finger hovering over an app he hadn't opened in a long time, but he couldn't bring himself to press it. Lucas? Diego tested cautiously. Lucas suddenly pocketed the phone, his voice taut. Traffic jam. Just wait. Traffic jam? At this hour? It wasn't even rush hour. No one dared to argue. 10 o'clock. People started finding excuses to leave. 11 o'clock. Lucas was still stubbornly standing guard by the door, his gaze locked onto it. Abigail finally lost her patience, her tone edged with annoyance. It's been 4 hours. If she wanted to come, she'd already be here. Let's stop waiting and just go home. Silence spread through the room, heavy and suffocating. Lucas's throat bobbed, his voice hoarse. It's not midnight yet. Just wait. She'll come. When the distant church bells struck midnight, Lucas's body gave an almost imperceptible tremor. Birthday and anniversary, both had passed, and she still wasn't coming. His hand shook as he picked up his phone, typing out a line. Where are you? Send. But the message didn't go through. A red exclamation mark slammed down like a hammer. The possibility he had been too afraid to face for 5 long hours now consumed his mind. Nicole, she was really gone. Fuck. Lucas roared, shoving past the people in front of him, and bolted out of the private room like a madman. Chapter 6. Beijing International Airport. The night wind was biting. I pulled my trench coat tighter around me, leaving everything about Lucas behind. Sis, a young man in a black jacket, moving with quick precision, came rushing up with a relieved smile. Over here. Daniel, my younger brother, and one of the organization's liaisons. I gave a soft reply, my voice carrying exhaustion. Elias is waiting at the safe house. Daniel took my backpack, lowering his voice. Sis, are you really sure? About Hummingbird? I'm sure. I cut him off, my tone flat. Let's meet. The car wound through several streets before stopping at the back door of a quiet cafe. Daniel opened the door for me. Sis, Elias is inside. I won't go in. I pushed the door open. Warm light filled the cafe, carrying the roasted fragrance of coffee beans. In the corner booth, a man sat with his back to the door, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple black turtleneck. At the sound of footsteps, he turned. The moment our eyes met, his lips curved into a lazy, teasing smile. Well, if it isn't Officer Nicole, the one who was retching her guts out beside a mass grave but still had the nerve to haggle with me. Pretending you don't know me? My eyelid twitched hard. You? Who else? He leaned forward slightly. I saved your life, dug up a mountain of intel for you, and didn't even get a proper thank you. Don't you think it's time we talked about interest? He leaned closer, voice low and magnetic. How about you cry in my arms for a while to cover the first installment? Expressionless, I stepped back half a pace to put distance between us. Cut the nonsense. Code names. Mission. Elias raised a brow, dropping the Playboy act. He leaned back in his seat, relaxed in posture but sharp in his gaze. Elias. Code name, Hummingbird. Mission, work with Shadow to eradicate Vulture's remaining network. He paused, then added, single, no bad habits, no history of relationships, never loved anyone except the mission targets. The bizarre, matchmaking-like self-introduction made the corner of my mouth twitch. Never dated? Who are you trying to fool? He chuckled softly. Well, since Officer Nicole hasn't given up on me yet, you teach me how to handle cases. And I will try to help you forget that damned ex-boyfriend sooner? My heart skipped a beat. I turned away from his overly direct gaze. He stood, walked over to the corner where an old black grand piano sat, and took a seat. His long fingers pressed down on the keys. Notes flowed out, sharp and metallic, not a gentle piano tune, but Beethoven's Tempest. Third movement, fierce, turbulent. But after the stormy outpour, a strange serenity emerged. The taut strings of my nerves loosened with the familiar melody. My eyes unconsciously fell on him, his focused profile, the strong lines of his hand, the pale wrist revealed from his black sweater sleeve, fastened with a simple silver cufflink. A thought struck me, partnering with this man, maybe I really could start over. The last note faded, reverberating through the quiet cafe. Elias turned his head, meeting his gaze. I spoke each word clearly, firmly. Elias. Same for me, right now. Aside from mission targets, I don't like anyone. My heart was empty, ready to let the next person in. Little by little, Elias raised a brow, laughter flickering in his eyes. Chapter 7. 2 months of joint operations had yielded astonishing efficiency. Elias's blade was ruthless and precise, and his intelligence network was nothing short of formidable. Together, we tore open several critical gaps in the Vulture's remaining network. During a lull between missions, our teams gathered for a meal. At the table, the 2 old foxes exchanged a few jokes. And just like that, the wedding date was set. By the time the banquet ended, it was already late at night. I had drunk a lot, my steps unsteady. Elias's arm was firmly around my waist, half supporting, half embracing me as we walked out. The moment we stepped through the revolving doors of the hotel, in the cold night wind, a figure stood stiffly at the bottom of the steps. It was Abigail. She didn't look at Elias. Those once innocent eyes now brimmed with venom, locked onto me with such hatred it nearly spilled over. Nicole, her shrill voice sliced through the night. Wasn't I good enough to you? Huh? And yet you still went and stole my man, afraid you'd do something stupid. I cut short my honeymoon to come running to you. I even threw you a birthday party. Is this how you repay me? The cold wind sobered me somewhat, and as I pieced it together, things became clear. Friends from Jiangbei had told me Lucas had gone mad looking for me. He had mobilized every connection, nearly turning Jiangbei upside down. Meanwhile, Abigail, pregnant and left alone at home, had been completely ignored. I straightened, brushed Elias's hand aside, and looked her calmly in the eye. Abigail, I never stole your man. I paused, then added, word by word, it was you who stole mine. My denial was like oil to a fire. Abigail's once delicate face twisted hideously. With a shriek, she lunged forward, hand raised to slap me. Bitch! Elias reacted instantly, seizing her wrist and flinging her away with force. She stumbled several steps before crashing to the icy ground. Wearing a dress, her thigh seemed to scrape against something, leaving a dark stain spreading on the fabric. Uncaring, she pointed at me like a rabid shrew, spitting venom. Bullshit! If you hadn't seduced him, why would he be like this? Lonely without your man. Huh? Why don't you just sell yourself? Whore! The filthy insults were unbearable. Elias's face darkened instantly, his eyes flashing with murderous rage. Looking for death? Watch your mouth. My voice was cold, but my eyes shifted past her, to the shadow beneath the hotel's portico. Officer Lucas, are you really planning to just watch your wife throwing a tantrum on the ground? Or will you step out and say something? The shadows stirred, and Lucas emerged. He didn't even glance at the pitiful Abigail on the ground. His bloodshot eyes were fixed squarely on me and Elias, especially on the arm wrapped around my waist. Instinctively, Elias shifted, completely blocking me from Lucas's disgusting gaze. His eyes narrowed, his whole body radiating hostility. For several tense seconds, they stood locked. Then, as Abigail's sobs grew louder, Lucas finally stirred, expression blank as he pulled her up from the ground. Let's go home. His voice was hoarse and dry, clutching him like a lifeline. Abigail wailed louder, pointing at us. Explain? Explain what? That you two were sneaking around behind my back. Lucas! You're my husband. She's my mentor. How could you betray me like this? Her hysterical cries sounded absurd, laughable even. I gave a crooked smile and looked at Lucas. Double betrayal. Officer Lucas? Doesn't this script feel a little familiar? His face went deathly pale, his lips parted as if to speak. But in the end, he said nothing. Half dragging, half carrying Abigail, he shoved her into a car by the curb. The car sped off into the night. Elias retracted his icy gaze. When he looked down at me again, most of that rage had ebbed, though his brow was still furrowed. He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, the ember flickering in the night. So that's him? Lucas? The ex-partner you searched 3 years for, almost lost your life over? I answered faintly, feeling the cold, and instinctively leaned closer to him. Elias, without hesitation, spread his coat and wrapped me inside. Warmth enveloped me. His tobacco-tinged breath brushed my hair. So that's why you were like that before? That ghost of a person? I tilted my head up at him. Like what? Like a walking corpse whose soul's been sucked out. He muttered, his unruly eyes uncharacteristically serious. Might as well have stamped failed suicide on your forehead. I smirked faintly, offering no rebuttal. Nicole. Elias stubbed out his cigarette, lifted my chin with clean fingers. I'm no saint. Not some bleeding heart savior. You can use me as your blade, your shield, your scapegoat. His gaze was sharp, cutting straight into mine. But since you've chosen to be tied to me, you'd better clear that dead bastard's place out of your heart. The raw possessiveness in him, so brazenly jealous, strangely melted the last trace of coldness inside me. From now on, I said, meeting his deep eyes, my partner is you. Elias's tense expression finally softened, replaced by a smile. He ruffled my hair roughly. Smart girl. Chapter 8. The day we moved. The sun was shining brightly. Elias had chosen our new home, a high-rise with an open, sweeping view. Just as we carried the last box upstairs, I saw Lucas at the entrance. He leaned against the door of an SUV, unshaven, with deep shadows under his eyes, his whole being carrying a broken, defeated air. Since the night he left with Abigail last week, I hadn't seen him again. Strangely enough, for 3 years I had been unable to forget him. Yet in this single week, I hadn't thought of him once. His eyes were slightly red, carrying a mix of unwillingness and despair. Over a year ago, I came back. His hoarse voice rasped. I went to Jiangbei, to the places we used to go. I couldn't find you. I called you. His Adam's apple bobbed hard. Then his gaze shifted to Elias, burning with bitter hatred. It was a man who answered. Nicole. His bloodshot eyes locked onto me. At that moment, I wanted to kill you both. So you left again? I asked calmly. And then when you saw me at the wedding, you thought revenge was complete? That's why you married Abigail? Lucas staggered, as if struck. His mouth opened, breath ragged. You want to know? I stepped closer. Why he answered that call over a year ago? Lucas's eyes were fixed on my lips. I looked straight at him and said, slow and clear, because I tried to kill myself. Without you, living was too exhausting. I lifted my left wrist, showing the jagged scar along the bone. In the bathroom, with the dagger you once gave me. Every drop of color drained from Lucas's face. He stared at me, stunned. Disbelief etched across his features. His once straight posture bent with visible pain. For a long time, he opened his mouth, trembling, but no sound came out. Nicole, would you wait for me? Just a little longer? Abigail is pregnant. She once saved my life. I can't abandon her now. But once she has the baby, I'll divorce her. I'll make it right with you. Please. Chapter 9. I shook my head with a smile and refused. Lucas. It's too late. I'm moving forward. You shouldn't look back either. If that day at the wedding, when you saw me, there had been even a flicker of guilt, a little worry, even just one question, are you doing okay? I paused, voice calm and even. Maybe I really would have waited for you. But now, I watched his eyes collapse into hopeless gray. Not anymore. Lucas bent over, his face twisted in agony, his mouth opening but no words coming out. In the end, he left, and just as I wished, he never appeared again. Gone. Elias draped his arm around my shoulder. Tone light, trash taken out. Let's go home. That first night living together. Elias swept all the antidepressants and sleeping pills from my nightstand straight into the trash. Nicole, with me, you don't need these useless things. Looking at the faint smile on his lips, I pretended not to know. And what if I relapse? Elias raised an eyebrow, smirking wickedly. Relapse? Mental breakdown? Fine. I specialize in curing stubborn cases. Guaranteed results. I laughed softly, warmth filling my chest. When Abigail was nearly 6 months pregnant, she contacted me again. I thought for a while, then agreed to meet. After almost 3 months, the only difference was her belly. She was still arrogant as ever. I know everything now, she opened bluntly, voice hoarse. Lucas was the dead man you searched for 3 years. She was silent a moment, then continued, if it had been anyone else, I wouldn't even apologize. If she couldn't hold on to her man, that was her failure. I only fought for what was mine. I didn't know who he was when I dragged him out of the gutter. I saved him. His life belongs to me. Her voice rose suddenly. So what if it's immoral? I won't apologize. But if I don't beg for your forgiveness, Lucas will never look at me, never touch me. He treats me like I don't exist. Her body trembled slightly. For the first time, she looked almost pleading. Nicole, I'm sorry. I love him. My child can't grow up without a father. Even after knowing your whole mess, I can't leave him. I saved his life. As long as I don't sign the papers, he'll never get rid of me. Her eyes were red as she stared at me desperately. For old time's sake, when I used to help you deliver files, run errands, can't you forgive me, please? I stayed silent, only looking at her, the girl who once sweetly called me senior sister, now twisted beyond recognition by obsession and jealousy. Time passed slowly. I pulled a document from my bag and slid it across the table. It was the property transfer for the Jiangbei apartment. It's yours. I said quietly, decorated in the style he liked. I don't need it anymore. It was my final sentiment toward that little junior of the past. And a small, pitiful compensation for the innocent child in her belly. As for forgiveness, I stood and said softly, Abigail, in this life, I will never forgive you, and I will never forgive him. Then I turned and left, without looking back. Behind me came the sound of muffled, broken sobbing. Chapter 10. 3 months later, Elias and I got our marriage certificate. That day, the sunlight was dazzling, barely 10 minutes after leaving headquarters. I noticed the route was off. Elias, are you taking a detour? I frowned at the scenery outside the window. Clearly not the way to the registry office. The man in the driver's seat rested one hand casually on the wheel, looking perfectly at ease. What's the rush? This only happens once in a lifetime. I'm taking you for a little ride, letting you enjoy the spring in the capital. Don't you understand the need for ceremony? What should have been an hour's drive? He stretched into more than 2, at the Civil Affairs Bureau, filling out forms, taking photos, reciting the vows. He dragged out every step. He checked the forms over and over, nitpicked the lighting angles when we took the photo, and insisted the staff read every word of the oath ceremony without skipping a line. Finally, unable to hold it in, I pressed down my anger. Elias, if you don't want to marry me, just say it. He turned his head, his face full of innocence and wounded grievance. Hey, I'm doing all this to give you a memorable experience. Isn't that obvious? You only get married once. What's wrong with dragging it out a little? And you're scolding me for it? Looking at his fake grievance, with that sly sparkle in his eyes, I took a deep breath and let him fuss as he pleased. When at last I held that warm red booklet in my hand, I felt a moment of daze. Once, I had imagined countless times standing here with someone else. But now, in the red-framed photo, the one by my side was Elias. He wore a simple white shirt, grinning broadly as he slung an arm around my shoulder. His dazzling smile revealed a row of white teeth, and his eyes burned with a bright, genuine light. Walking out of the Civil Bureau, the warm sunlight spilled over us. Like a magician, Elias pulled out a velvet box from the car. Inside was a pair of simple platinum wedding bands. He picked up the woman's ring and, without asking, slid it onto my ring finger. It fit perfectly. There, he said, shaking his own matching ring, catching the sunlight in a shimmer. Locked down. From now on, in life you're mine, and in death you're still mine. Officer Nicole. I lowered my head, staring at that cool circle of metal, then looked up at his radiant face under the sun. And at last, the ice that had frozen my heart for 3 long years completely melted. A year later, our daughter was born. Elias was over the moon. He named her Misty. I lay on the hospital bed as Elias gently placed her in my arms, then leaned down and kissed me. He looked at me, his smile warm, his eyes tender. To know your heart, and to promise you my life. I lightly grasped our daughter's tiny soft hand, and at the same time, held his hand as it covered mine. Outside, the sunlight was just right. I met his deep gaze and softly replied, and I promise you my life, too.